Prince Harry is heartbroken. Sources close to the Sussexes are now revealing what many have suspected for months: the marriage is over. Not legally, not officially, but in every way that actually matters. Insiders claim Harry is in a depressed and lonely state, utterly devastated because even he is finally beginning to understand the cold, hard truth. Meghan Markle is ghosting her own husband. The couple that once promised to revolutionize the monarchy, that walked away from royal duties for their so-called freedom, has become nothing more than a brand, a business arrangement, purely transactional. Those are the exact words coming from people who know them well, and the implications are absolutely devastating. This isn't speculation anymore. This is the reality Harry is waking up to every single day in their Montecito mansion, and it's destroying him from the inside out. But here's where it gets even more chilling. One source described their relationship with a metaphor that's been making waves: a root canal marriage. Think about that for a second. When a dentist performs a root canal, they kill the nerve inside the tooth. From the outside, it still looks like a tooth. It's still there, still visible, still functional in appearance. But inside, it's completely dead. No feeling, no life, no vitality whatsoever. That's exactly what Harry and Meghan's marriage has become. It looks like a marriage from the outside. They still appear together occasionally. They still share the Sussex title. But the heart of it, the soul of it, the actual connection between two people who supposedly loved each other, dead, gone, finished. Harry is reportedly moping around their California home, alone, reflecting on the enormous sacrifices he's made over the past several years. He gave up his family. He gave up his country. He gave up his military titles, his patronages, his place in the line of succession, his relationship with his brother William, his relationship with his father King Charles. He torched every bridge he had. And for what? For a woman who is now jetting around the world promoting solo projects while treating him like he's surplus to requirements. Meghan, meanwhile, is living her best life. She's ambitious, she's driven, and whether you admire her or despise her, she's achieved exactly what she set out to achieve. She went from being an obscure actress on a cable television show to becoming one of the most famous women on the planet. She's got the money, she's got the title, she's got the global platform. Mission accomplished. And now that she's gotten everything she needed from Harry, sources say she simply doesn't need him anymore. The love bombing has stopped. The affection has evaporated. What's left is a cold, transactional arrangement that's breaking Harry's heart one day at a time. But that was just the beginning of this devastating story. When sources close to the Sussexes say the marriage has become just a brand, they're not exaggerating for dramatic effect. They mean it literally. Harry and Meghan are no longer functioning as husband and wife in any meaningful sense. They're business partners at best, and even that partnership seems increasingly one-sided. Everything they do now is calculated for public consumption, for maintaining the Sussex image, for keeping the money flowing in from their various deals and ventures. But behind the carefully curated Instagram posts and the occasional joint appearances, there's nothing but emptiness. This transactional nature of their relationship raises a question that's been whispered about for months. Did they ever truly marry for love? Insiders who've watched this relationship from the beginning have their theories, and they're not particularly flattering. Harry, they say, was absolutely infatuated with Meghan. He was in lust, completely swept off his feet by this glamorous, confident American actress who seemed so different from anyone he'd ever known. But for Meghan, word on the street suggests it was always a career move, a calculated step up the ladder of fame and influence. Before she met Harry, Meghan was what industry insiders call a Z-list actress. She had a role on a cable show that most people had never heard of. She was doing briefcase girl appearances on game shows. She was struggling to break into the A-list circles that seemed forever out of reach. But then she married Prince Harry, and overnight everything changed. Suddenly she was the Duchess of Sussex. Suddenly she was sitting front row at fashion weeks. Suddenly she was on the cover of every magazine in the world. The title alone transformed her from nobody into somebody. And Meghan has never been shy about leveraging that transformation for everything it's worth. Now, several years later, Meghan has extracted every possible advantage from her royal connection. She's established herself as a global figure. She's got the recognition, the platform, the connections in Hollywood and beyond. And here's the brutal truth that Harry is only now beginning to fully grasp: she doesn't need him anymore. The prince who gave her access to the world stage has served his purpose. The royal title that opened every door imaginable has done its job. What use is Harry to Meghan now, especially when his own reputation has taken such a beating in recent years? The insider who described their relationship as purely transactional wasn't just throwing around buzzwords. They were describing a marriage where affection has been replaced by business meetings, where intimacy has been replaced by public relations strategies, where love has been replaced by brand management. Harry thought he was building a life with his soulmate. Meghan was building an empire, and Harry was simply one of the construction materials. Now that the foundation is laid, she's ready to move on to the next phase. and that phase apparently doesn't require a heartbroken prince hanging around, and things were about to get even worse for Harry. There's a devastating observation that sources have shared about the current state of Harry and Meghan's relationship, and it cuts right to the heart of what's really happening behind closed doors. The love bombing, they say, has long since stopped. Meghan is cold around Harry now. She treats him with contempt. He's becoming surplus to requirements. Those are the exact words coming from people who've witnessed their interactions. And if you understand what love bombing actually is, you'll realize just how sinister this whole situation becomes. Love bombing is a manipulation tactic often used by narcissistic personalities. It's when someone overwhelms you with affection, attention, gifts, and grand gestures at the beginning of a relationship. They make you feel like you're the most important person in the entire world. They're constantly texting, constantly planning romantic surprises, constantly telling you how much they adore you. It's intoxicating, it's addictive, and it's completely unsustainable because it was never real to begin with. It's a strategy designed to hook you emotionally, to make you dependent on their approval, to blind you to red flags that would otherwise send you running. And here's the truly cruel part. Once the love bomber has achieved their objective, once they've gotten what they wanted from you, the affection vanishes almost overnight. The warm, attentive person you fell in love with transforms into someone cold, distant, and dismissive. You're left confused, desperately trying to win back the affection you once had, wondering what you did wrong, not realizing that you were never dealing with genuine love in the first place. You were dealing with a performance, and now the performance is over. Harry, according to these sources, is living through exactly this experience. The woman who once gazed at him adoringly, who held his hand constantly, who made him feel like the center of her universe, has disappeared. In her place is someone who treats him like an inconvenience, like a burden she's forced to tolerate. The contempt is apparently visible to those around them, and it's breaking Harry into pieces. But why was Harry so vulnerable to this kind of manipulation? The answer is painfully obvious. He's a damaged, broken person. He lost his mother at 12 years old in the most traumatic circumstances imaginable. He struggled with mental health issues, addiction issues, identity issues for most of his adult life. He's never fully processed his grief or his anger, and damaged, broken people are incredibly vulnerable to someone like Meghan Markle. They're desperate for love, desperate for validation, desperate for someone to make them feel whole again. When a charismatic, confident person swoops in and offers exactly what they've been craving, they don't ask questions. They don't see the warning signs. They just fall, completely and totally. These manipulative personalities know exactly how to spot vulnerability and exploit it. They're charming, they're attractive, they're magnetic, but once they've achieved their objectives, once they've gotten the title or the money or the fame they were after, they withdraw the affection like flipping a switch. Little did Harry know, the nightmare was only beginning. Picture Harry sitting alone in their Montecito mansion, staring out at the California coastline, replaying every decision that led him to this moment. Sources say he's spending his days exactly like this, moping around the house on his own, reflecting on how much he's sacrificed over the years. And the list of sacrifices is staggering. His relationship with William, destroyed. His relationship with his father, shattered. His military titles that he cherished more than anything, stripped away. His patronages, his place in the royal family, his entire identity as a working royal, all gone. And for what? For a woman who now treats him like he's an afterthought. The penny has finally dropped. Harry is beginning to understand the catastrophic price he's paid for this marriage, and the realization is eating him alive. He made what might be the worst choice of his entire life, and he's stuck living with the consequences every single day. But here's what makes this situation even more tragic. Harry never wanted any of this chaos in the first place. He's not ambitious. He never craved fame or power or global influence. He's just a regular guy who happened to be born into royalty, and all he ever really wanted was a simple, quiet life. People don't understand this about Harry because they see the prince, the palace, the privilege. But strip all that away, and what you're left with is a slightly overweight middle-aged man with a ginger beard who just wants to chill out, hang with his mates, maybe relive his younger days when life was simpler. He's admitted in his own book that he spent a decade getting baked, using substances to numb the pain of his mother's death and the pressure of royal life. That's not the behavior of someone driven by ambition. That's someone trying to escape. And here's the fundamental problem with Harry and Meghan's relationship. They are completely, utterly, catastrophically mismatched. Meghan is one of the most ambitious people on the planet. She's wanted to be a star since she was a little girl. She's strategic, calculating, always thinking 3 moves ahead about how to leverage every situation for maximum benefit. She never stops, never slows down, never takes her foot off the gas. Harry, on the other hand, has zero drive. Why would he? He was born into fame and wealth. Nobody craves something they already have. Ambition comes from hunger, from wanting what you don't possess. Harry inherited everything, so he's never had that fire burning inside him. This mismatch is destroying their marriage from the inside out. Meghan looks at Harry and sees someone who's content to just exist, someone who lacks the passion and hunger that drives her every waking moment. Harry looks at Meghan and sees someone who can never be satisfied, someone who's always chasing the next achievement, the next headline, the next level of fame. They fundamentally don't understand each other, and now they're trapped in a relationship where resentment grows stronger every single day. But the most shocking revelation was still to come. There's a detail that sources have revealed which makes the entire situation even more devastating, and it's something that needs to be addressed carefully but honestly. This is no longer a full marriage. Insiders say it hasn't been a complete relationship for over a year now. Without going into explicit detail, what they're saying is that the intimacy, the physical connection that exists between husband and wife, has disappeared. The marriage exists on paper, in public appearances, in carefully staged photographs, but in terms of what actually makes a marriage real, what bonds two people together in the most fundamental way, it's gone. Think about what that means for Harry. He's living in the same house as his wife, but they might as well be strangers. They're roommates at best, and even that's generous considering how cold Meghan reportedly is toward him. The affection has evaporated. The passion that once existed, or at least appeared to exist, has vanished completely. Harry is living in a relationship that's a marriage in name only, and for someone who gave up absolutely everything for love, that realization must be absolutely crushing. This is what the root canal marriage metaphor really captures. When you have a root canal, the dentist removes all the living tissue from inside the tooth. The nerve dies, the blood supply is cut off. What remains is just a hollow shell held together by a crown. It functions enough to chew food, enough to smile for photos, but there's no life inside it anymore. That's exactly what Harry and Meghan have become. They show up together when absolutely necessary. They maintain the appearance of a functioning couple for business purposes. But the heart of the relationship, the intimacy and connection that makes marriage meaningful, has been extracted and discarded. For over a year, sources claim, this has been the reality. Over a year of Harry going to bed at night knowing his marriage is a fraud. Over a year of pretending everything is fine while dying inside. Over a year of watching Meghan pursue her solo ambitions while he's left behind to reflect on the wreckage of his former life. The emotional toll this must be taking on him is unimaginable. He's trapped in a situation where leaving would mean admitting failure, admitting that everyone who warned him about Meghan was right, admitting that he destroyed his relationship with his family for nothing. But staying means living in this hollow shell indefinitely, watching the woman he thought he loved treat him with increasing contempt, feeling more isolated and alone despite technically being married. It's a nightmare scenario with no good options, and Harry is living it every single day. The man who once seemed so confident, so rebellious, so sure of his choices, has been reduced to someone moping around an empty house, reflecting on how spectacularly wrong everything went. And while Harry suffered in silence, Meghan was making moves that would shock everyone. While Harry sits at home drowning in regret and loneliness, Meghan Markle is absolutely thriving. She's jet-setting around the world, appearing at high-profile events, networking with fashion elites, and making it crystal clear that her future is hers alone. The most striking example of this new phase came with her trip to Paris Fashion Week, an appearance that insiders are calling her Taj Mahal moment. Just like Princess Diana's iconic solo photo at the Taj Mahal signaled the end of her marriage to Charles, Meghan's Paris appearance sent an unmistakable message about where she's heading, and that direction doesn't include Harry. The Duchess showed up in the front row at the Balenciaga headline show, turning heads with her first ever Fashion Week appearance. She was glowing, confident, completely in her element as cameras flashed and fashion insiders whispered about her arrival. But behind the glamour and the designer outfits, sources say this trip marked a pivotal shift in Meghan's post-royal rebrand. She's no longer the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. She's just Meghan now, carving out her own identity in the fashion world, and Harry is nowhere to be seen in this new chapter. One insider revealed that she's pivoting hard into fashion, and her determination to launch her own clothing brand represents a desire for financial and career independence. Translation: she wants her own money, her own success, her own empire that has nothing to do with being married to a prince. She's reportedly taking cues from Victoria Beckham, studying how Posh Spice transformed herself from pop star to respected fashion designer with her own globally recognized brand. Meghan wants that same trajectory, that same level of independent success. But here's the bitter irony. Victoria Beckham actually had an incredible career before fashion. She sold 50 million records with the Spice Girls. She was already famous, already successful, already established. Meghan, on the other hand, was relatively unknown before Harry, and there's an even more insulting layer to this story. Victoria Beckham was actually kind to Meghan early on. She introduced her to key figures in fashion and entertainment across the United Kingdom. She opened doors that would have remained closed otherwise. And how did Meghan repay that kindness? by accusing Victoria and David Beckham of leaking stories about the Sussexes to the press. The accusation was apparently so hurtful and so absurd that Victoria cut ties with Meghan completely. Can you imagine Victoria Beckham, one of the busiest and most accomplished women in entertainment, calling newspaper editors to gossip about Meghan Markle? It's ridiculous, but that's exactly the kind of paranoid, manipulative behavior that's driven away so many people from Meghan's life. She burns bridges, makes enemies, and then wonders why she's constantly surrounded by drama. Now she's trying to become Victoria Beckham 2.0, copying the playbook of a woman she insulted and alienated. Meanwhile, Harry watches from the sidelines, completely excluded from this new version of Meghan's life, and the distance between them was growing every single day. The phrase that keeps appearing in reports from royal insiders is absolutely devastating in its simplicity. They are living parallel lives, not intersecting lives, not shared lives, but parallel. Two separate existences that happen to occupy the same physical space occasionally, but never actually meet in any meaningful way. It's the perfect description of a marriage that's completely collapsed while still technically existing on paper. While Meghan courts the fashion elite, attending exclusive events and networking with designers and influencers, Harry remains focused on his royal past. That's the reality insiders are describing. Meghan is racing forward, eyes fixed on her next reinvention, her next business venture, her next opportunity to climb higher. Harry, meanwhile, is stuck looking backward, nostalgic for what he used to have, mourning the life he threw away. He's in legacy mode while she's in reinvention mode, and those two modes are completely incompatible. One source close to the situation told Page 6 something that perfectly captures the dysfunction. They are not aligned. He is in legacy mode, she is in reinvention mode. Think about what that means on a practical day-to-day level. Harry wakes up thinking about his lost military titles, his destroyed relationship with William, the royal duties he once performed. He's grieving the past. Meghan wakes up thinking about her fashion brand launch, her next speaking engagement, her strategy for breaking into Hollywood's A-list circles. She's building the future. They're not just on different pages anymore. They're reading completely different books. The Paris Fashion Week trip was followed by another solo appearance that drove this point home even harder. Meghan showed up at the Fortune Most Powerful Women Summit in Washington, D.C., speaking about the importance of giving yourself permission to pivot. On the surface, it sounds like generic inspirational talk, but insiders say it was actually an admission of failure wrapped in corporate language. The pivot she was really talking about? Her struggling American Riviera orchard brand. The jam, the honey, the flower sprinkles that were supposed to make her a lifestyle mogul? They flopped. Nobody cared. So now she's pivoting again, trying fashion instead. But here's the thing about pivoting. In business, it means your original plan didn't work, so you're scrambling to find something that does. And the biggest pivot Meghan is planning, the one that's going to shock everyone when it finally happens, is pivoting away from Harry himself. That's the endgame here. She's testing the waters, seeing how much she can succeed without him by her side, building a separate identity so that when the split eventually comes, she's already established as Meghan Markle, the fashion icon, not just Meghan Markle, the former royal. Harry, meanwhile, has no pivot. He has no plan. He's just stuck in that Montecito mansion, watching his wife build a future that doesn't include him, realizing that every sacrifice he made was for nothing. The parallel lives are getting further apart every day, and soon they'll be so distant that even the pretense of marriage becomes impossible to maintain. But the most brutal truth was yet to be revealed. Here's the part that must absolutely destroy Harry when he thinks about it late at night. Meghan achieved everything she ever wanted, every single goal she set for herself, every dream she had as that ambitious little girl growing up in California, she accomplished. And she did it by using him as a stepping stone. The bitter irony is almost too painful to contemplate. Harry gave up everything for love, and Meghan gave up nothing because it was never about love for her. It was always about ambition. Let's trace Meghan's journey from the beginning. She was born in California, daughter of a lighting director who worked in Hollywood. There was a tiny connection to the entertainment industry through her father, but nothing substantial. She wasn't born into wealth or fame. She wasn't handed opportunities. She had to claw her way up, taking whatever roles she could get. She appeared as a briefcase girl on game shows, standing there in a short skirt holding numbered cases while contestants made their choices. She landed a role on a cable show called Suits that most people had never heard of. She was, by industry standards, a Z-list actress going nowhere fast. Then she met Prince Harry, and everything changed overnight. Suddenly, she went from obscure television actress to global phenomenon. Suddenly, she was on the cover of every magazine in the world. Suddenly, she had the title Duchess of Sussex attached to her name. Suddenly, she was sitting front row at fashion weeks, being invited to exclusive events, networking with the most powerful people on the planet. Harry was her golden ticket, her access pass to a level of fame and influence she could never have achieved on her own. And now, she's got the money. She's got the recognition. She's got the platform. She's got the connections in Hollywood, in fashion, in media. She's transformed herself from nobody into somebody, and she did it by leveraging the royal connection for everything it was worth. Mission accomplished. Objective achieved. Goal complete. The question that must haunt Harry is obvious. What use is he to her now? Harry's purpose was to be Meghan's launchpad, and he served that purpose perfectly. He gave her access to the royal family. He gave her a global stage. He gave her credibility and prestige. But now that she's launched, now that she's orbiting in her own stratosphere of fame and ambition, she doesn't need the launchpad anymore. In fact, Harry might actually be holding her back at this point. His reputation has taken such a beating in recent years. The public turned against him after he trashed his family in interviews and in his book. He's become a controversial figure, someone who generates negative headlines. For Meghan's rebrand, for her push into fashion and Hollywood's elite circles, Harry is becoming a liability rather than an asset. This was never a love story. It was always a business transaction, and now that the transaction is complete, Harry is learning the most devastating lesson of his life. The question everyone was asking became impossible to ignore. So here's the question that everyone is asking. Will Harry and Meghan actually divorce, or will they continue this charade indefinitely? The answer is far more complicated and strategic than you might think. Sources suggest that while the marriage is dead in every meaningful sense, Meghan might actually hang on to Harry for quite a few more years. Not because she loves him, not because she wants to repair the relationship, but because keeping him serves a purpose. Think about it from a purely business perspective. Harry and Meghan are the Sussexes. That brand, as hollow as it might be, still has value. They can still command attention when they appear together. They can still leverage the royal connection, even if it's increasingly toxic. For pragmatic reasons, for transactional reasons, Meghan might calculate that maintaining the appearance of marriage is more valuable than filing for divorce. She gets to keep the Duchess title. She gets to keep the Sussex Association, and she gets to continue using Harry's royal lineage whenever it benefits her ambitions. But here's where things get messy. Harry is a real man with real needs. If this truly is just a marriage in name only, if Meghan is as cold and distant as sources claim, if there's been no intimacy for over a year, what happens to Harry? Will he remain loyal to a wife who treats him with contempt, or will his eyes start to wander? This is a legitimate question, and it's one that insiders are quietly speculating about behind closed doors. Let's not forget Harry's bloodline. He's a Mountbatten-Windsor, and that family has a well-documented history when it comes to marital fidelity. Prince Philip had rumored affairs throughout his marriage to Queen Elizabeth. Prince Charles famously had an ongoing relationship with Camilla while married to Diana. Prince Andrew, well, we know about his scandals. The royal men have never exactly been models of faithfulness, especially when their marriages became unhappy or unfulfilling. So the question becomes, if Harry is living in a dead marriage where his wife has essentially checked out emotionally and physically, will he stay faithful, or will he seek connection and intimacy elsewhere? And here's the truly cynical possibility that some insiders are whispering about. Maybe Meghan wouldn't even care. Maybe they'd have some kind of arrangement, an open marriage where they maintain the public facade while living completely separate private lives. It would make sense from Meghan's perspective. She doesn't want Harry romantically anymore, but she wants to keep the Sussex brand intact. If Harry strays discreetly, if he finds companionship elsewhere while keeping up appearances publicly, maybe that works for her. It's a cold, transactional way to approach marriage, but everything about Harry and Meghan's relationship has become cold and transactional. The love story is over. What remains is a business partnership where both parties are trying to extract maximum value while minimizing personal cost. For Harry, that might mean staying in this dead marriage for years while quietly finding happiness elsewhere. But the full devastating truth was finally becoming impossible to deny. Let's pull back and look at the complete picture of what's happened here, because the truth is almost too brutal to fully comprehend. Prince Harry, a man who was born into one of the most privileged positions on earth, who had the love and support of an entire nation, who had a family despite all their flaws, who had a purpose and identity as a working royal, threw it all away. He burned every bridge. He destroyed every relationship that mattered. He sacrificed his military titles that he valued more than anything. And he did it all for a woman who was playing him from the very beginning. This wasn't a fairy tale that went wrong. This was a manipulation that went exactly according to plan. Meghan identified a vulnerable, damaged man who was desperate for love and validation. She love-bombed him with affection and attention until he was completely hooked. She isolated him from his family and friends. She convinced him that leaving the royal family was the only way they could be happy. And once she'd extracted everything of value from the relationship, once she had the fame and the title and the global platform, she dropped the act. The warm, loving woman Harry fell for disappeared, replaced by someone cold, ambitious, and utterly indifferent to his suffering. Harry is finally seeing this truth, and it's breaking him. He's depressed, lonely, and heartbroken because he understands now what a catastrophic mistake he made. He chose wrong. He trusted the wrong person. He believed in a love that was never real, and the price he's paid is staggering. His brother won't speak to him. His father has minimal contact with him. The British public, who once adored him, now views him with a mixture of pity and contempt. He's stranded in California, thousands of miles from home, trapped in a root canal marriage that looks fine from the outside but is completely dead inside. The fairy tale was a lie. The grand romance was a business transaction. Meghan got her crown, her global fame, her pathway to the elite circles she'd always dreamed of joining. And Harry got left behind, used up, discarded like he was surplus to requirements. He's living in a mansion worth millions, but feeling more alone than he's ever felt in his life. He's technically married, but experiencing none of the love, intimacy, or partnership that makes marriage worthwhile. He's watching his wife build a future that doesn't include him while he's stuck mourning a past he can never get back. This is the devastating reality of Harry and Meghan's marriage right now. A root canal relationship. Dead inside but maintained for appearances. And the question that hangs over everything is simple. How much longer can this possibly last? How much longer can Harry endure this pain before something breaks? The cracks are showing, the truth is leaking out, and sooner or later, this hollow shell of a marriage is going to collapse completely, leaving Harry to pick up the pieces of a life he destroyed for nothing. So what do you think? Is this marriage salvageable, or is divorce inevitable? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and stay tuned because trust me, the next video is going to blow your mind. The Sussex saga is far from over, and what's coming next is going to shock absolutely everyone.